I'd like to welcome you here this evening. We're just a couple of minutes away from beginning the meeting. And before we begin, I'd invite you to stand and join me in the pledge, and then Kevin Flores will give the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here this evening. Father, we ask that you watch over our city, particularly those residents of ours who were injured and those whose homes and property were damaged or destroyed in last month's tornado. May they be able to heal and rebuild quickly. Father, we also ask that Father, we also thank you for allowing us to live in this free society of ours, where we and our residents can gather peacefully, free from war or oppression. And we ask that you be with those around the world who are striving for the same. In your name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kevin. All right. I'd like to again welcome you to tonight's regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. We do have large print agendas available. Colby's got them there if that would be helpful to anyone. And with that said, I'll ask Denise Pierce, our city clerk, to call the roll.
Harris Browse.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Amelia Williams. Here. Jeff Watson. Here. Mike Overton.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Kevin Flores.
Here.
Randall Harriman.
Here.
Mark Fujiroos. Here. Ernest Kate.
Here. All right, thank you. And we'll move to item 5, comments from our citizens. If we have residents that would like to address the council, this is the portion of each meeting that the council sets aside to hear comments from our residents. We ask that you, if you would like to make comments, please go to the microphone, clearly state your name and address, and we ask that you please keep your comments brief and understand that the council won't take action on anything you bring forward tonight. Is there anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, approval of minutes. Council, hopefully you've had an opportunity to look those over. If there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, item 7, public hearing. I'm gonna turn this over to our city attorney, Ernest Kate.
Thank you. On the agenda, it's item number, well, where is it?
It's down at the end.
Oh, number 13.
Yeah.
Item number 13, there's an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of water and sewer revenue bonds, and the statute requires that before you can take action on that a public hearing be held. Notice of the public hearing was published as required by statute. So is there anyone here that wishes to comment on this item? Not, we'll close the public hearing. We'll take the ordinance up
All right.
later in the agenda.
We'll discuss that ordinance later. And item 8, procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
Move for A and B.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for 8A and B. Roll call, please.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams. Yes. Watson. Yes. Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fujiroos.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you. Item 9, Planning Commission report and recommendations. I think Patsy's gone tonight. Rick Berry's going to take that for Patsy. Rick, speak into that microphone good and loud, okay?
All right, will do, sir.
Thank you.
There we go. This is a request for replat of lots 6 through 10, parts of lots 1 through 5, and a platted alley right-of-way, Block 17 Railroad Edition. Planning Commission on April 5th reviewed and recommended approval of this replat. The title of the ordinance is an ordinance accepting the replat of lots 6 through 10, part of lots 1 through 5, and platted alley right-of-way, Block 17 Railroad Edition of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency.
Okay.
Move the ordinance pass.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Are there any other questions or comments by the council or anyone in the room? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we will ask for a roll call.
Williams. Yes. Watson.
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes. Move the merge clause be adopted.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus, Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Do you have another one?
Yes, one more.
Oh, okay. We got one more.
Request for replat of Lot 61 of Parker's Place subdivision, Phase 2. The April 5th Planning Commission, the Planning Commission reviewed and recommended approval of this replat. The title of the ordinance is an ordinance accepting the replat of Lot 61 of Parker's Place subdivision, Phase 2, a subdivision development in the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? All right, Denise?
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams, Watson,
Yes. Move the merge clause be adopted.
Second.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams, Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
All right, thank you. We're at item 10, Finance Committee Report and Recommendations. Chairman Jeff Watson. Jeff?
Well, item number 10A is a resolution. I'll read the title of the resolution. A resolution authorizing the grant of utilities across property owned by the city of Springdale, Washington County, Arkansas. And frankly, don't remember the whole story on that, Mayor.
Okay, Ryan's here if you want to.
Good evening, council. This is
Refresh.
a request brought to us by Cox Communications. They are requesting a utility easement on some city-owned property over by the interstate, just north of Watkins Avenue. This is so they could install a fiber line running service to the Children's Hospital across the interstate.
Remember, this is just north of Watkins. We were
Yes.
talking about how, the easement that existed, so.
Yes.
I move the resolution be adopted.
And there's an established pole already that
Correct.
already has lines going across.
So that resolution was forwarded from committee with recommendation for approval.
Second. I think we got a motion and a second. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams, Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
Item 10B is another resolution forwarded from Finance Committee with recommendation for approval. Title to that resolution is a resolution authorizing the execution of a design contract for architect services.
Remember, I don't think Angie's here tonight. but-
Yes,
Oh,
I am.
there she is. There you are.
Good evening, Mayor.
What are you doing at the microphone? I looked everywhere except the microphone.
Right here.
You want to refresh everyone's memory? It might not have been at committee.
Sure. The museum would like to engage the services of Gary Clements and Associates, the architect from North Little Rock, who's done a lot of the preservation work here in Springdale. And the board funds that we have set aside will pay for this. We're running the contract through this process, but we have the funds, our own funds set aside to pay for this.
Thank you.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Harriman, Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 11, Health, Sanitation, and Property Maintenance Committee Chairman Amelia Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. We have an ordinance ordering the raising and removal of certain structure within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, located at 983 West Sunset, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. It was forwarded from committee with recommendation for approval, and I'll turn that over to Tom Evers. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council, mayor. I provided everyone except the mayor pictures, and even he only asked for them, so I forgot to count 10. So everybody does have some pictures of that building. It's the old Long John Silver's building. It's been sitting empty. I sent my letter May 19th of 2020, so better than 2 years, or getting close to 2 years. They've had it up for sale, not much action. They've had a fire there. Someone burned down a little storage building that was there. They did have a realtor at one time who, I think that code enforcement or neighborhood services had contacted for taking care of some of the mowing, but I think some of that's all kind of just gone away. And so, you know, I did talk to a woman at one point who claimed to be the owner out of New York. Can't get a hold of her again. She had asked me if she could board it up temporarily, which I said yes, you know, because she was trying to facilitate a sale if it sold. But now, nearly 2 years later, it's kind of becoming a problem for us.
Move ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams, Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Move the merge clause be adopted.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
And Tom was on our drive around with Adam and SBA today. And I meant to ask you after we got back, Tom, because I saw it on our drive around and it jarred my memory. But I hate to hit you cold with this, but can you give us an update, or where are we at on the old overhead door building that had a fire several months ago?
Okay, Mrs. Bunch, the owner, has been very good to work with. I mean, she was having some insurance problems with it. They are gonna rebuild it.
Okay.
They have retained SSI out of Fort Smith, and they are gonna rebuild it, so it's.
On the
it's in
same side,
works.
so it's gonna be, that's good.
Yes, sir.
I just wondered, I hated to hit you with that
No
cold,
problem. If you don't mind, I'll share about the other one across the street that burned
but, okay.
4 o'clock in the morning with the fire marshal at, you know, it's been about 2 years ago too, hasn't it, or a year and a half ago. Only the holdup on that is some engineering, but there is a contractor who's trying to pull a permit if they can get through plan review with his engineer, they'll be rebuilding that building too. That was the one, it's on like 2200, I believe, Thompson, on the opposite side of the street.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
We're at item 12, Ordinance Committee Chairman Mike Overton. Mike?
We have one ordinance come before the council, and it is an ordinance redistricting city wards in the city of Springdale, Arkansas pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 1443-311. And we have three options, and I think at the last committee meeting, we discussed all three and are bringing them forward for further discussion and adoption.
Okay.
I would like to move for Plan Plan 3.
3? All right, we have a motion.
I looked at this to quite a length this past week, and when you look at 3, you're pulling Harbor Meadows into Ward 3. And me personally, I feel like Harbor Meadows reflects more Ward 1. If you pull it into Ward 3, I feel like a lot of elections are going to come out of Harbor Meadows for representation for Ward 3. So it's going to change kind of the leadership of that ward. If I'm out of line, let me know. But I noticed that pulls it out on 3 and 4, if it doesn't on 2. Does that make sense to anybody else, or?
It makes sense. What you're saying makes sense. The reasoning and logic behind wanting or not wanting 3 or 4, it's what it sounds like, to me is, I'll say quite frankly, irresponsible of us to put political or personal reasons above the plain reason of having clear-cut lines and that make sense in our ward maps. So I get what you're saying. I don't agree with the reasoning.
I'll second Amelia's motion for Plan 3.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for 3. So, are there any other discussions on that motion?
Yeah, and 2, looking at this too, we have 4 plans here before us. And looking at the criteria, that it's based off population, even population to be within, I guess it's a 10%
10%.
deviation. So natural, it looked like natural populations, and we've expanded in the past 10 years. Looks like that it was fairly even according to these numbers. It changed a little bit, and so 2 things is, this is totally about the citizens. So if everything changed, or if the populations came in and it was relatively the same, then since it is the same, is that a reason to change it? If it's better for the citizens to be more geographically arranged, and I would go to Plan 4, because 4 would take everything up to Elm Springs, would border Elm Springs all the way around, and not divide a little sliver south of Lake Elmdale. So
Your dividing line on 4, if I remembering right, Brian, I'm not looking real close at this, but on 4, it would be at Elm Springs Road rather than at Harbor. Is that
it
correct?
would encompass all of Lake Elmdale. Yes, it would take it all the way up to Elm Springs.
All right.
And the boundaries of Elm Springs. So if we're looking at this to make it more geographically sound for our citizens, then map 4 looks like to me would be the best option. If it's better for the citizens that the population came in relatively equal throughout the maps, then I would go map 1.
Do you prefer map 1?
Well, I prefer map 1, but we have a motion on the table.
Yeah, we're gonna vote on that motion.
I don't have a vote, but since we've got a motion for Plan 3, I just wanted to put on the record whether it passes or doesn't pass, that Plan 3 has the lowest deviation of all 4 of the plans at 3%.
Right.
Just for the record.
I'm sorry, what is that, what are you saying?
Each,
Population's closest.
on the letter from Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission at the bottom of page 1, it talks about the population deviation between the wards. You try and get them as equal, like Brian was saying, you're trying to get them, the population as equal as possible within the 4 wards. And Plan 3 has the lowest deviation of all 4. I'm not advocating one way or the other, I'm just stating it for the record.
And I probably won't get to vote on this, we'll see. But I'll say that I do think it's important to have it simpler for people to know where those boundaries are. We've had our own version of the Fayetteville finger here for a long time. And for those of you who remember what that is. But I don't see a lot of difference between 3 and 4 for that purpose, for those purposes, but that's just me. There's some difference, but not a lot. So, does anyone have any more comments?
I got one more comment. And
Okay.
it kind of goes back. Thank you. It's just observational, and we talked about how if we had a crystal ball, we'd be in different professions, right? But looking at Ward 1 here, under option 4, it's got the least amount of people, and this would be set for the next 10 years. And we can't guess or estimate where the population is going to shift to, but all the development that's going on in Ward 1 currently, and how under 4 it currently has the least amount of people. By the time potentially we get done with this in 10 years, that could have a much larger population than is portrayed now due to the development that's going on there and due to the increase of our population. And granted, that could be said for any other ward, but I think this could potentially even itself out as is. And again, my intentions in voting or supporting number 4 is solely for the reason that it's the most clear-cut and easiest to explain and portray to the residents of our city.
Are there any differences you see in 4, Kevin, as opposed to 3, besides the harbor, the move from Harbor to Elm Springs Road?
No,
the
that's
separation?
that's strictly it. It's
That's
just
strictly it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And by default though, Ward 2 would get that extra aspect as well. That's easier to explain too, of just everything east of Turner and south of 412, as opposed to cutting over on Don Tyson and going south on Powell.
Yeah.
Those two aspects were my reasoning for
Well-
4 over 3.
Well, crystal ball looking at 4, Ward 2 has tons of development that's going on. That, I mean, we've approved so many projects out there that it'll probably, you're giving them 2,000 extra and it'll probably balloon out pretty heavy, especially with the multifamily aspect of that. Population boom's gonna really hit out there.
Yeah, and I agree what you're saying on that, but as far as land wise, I think one's where it's ample.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Anybody in the audience need to comment on these? The motion before the council is to approve Plan 3. All right. Whoop.
I'm just
Go ahead.
trying to think out loud. If the way we're handling this is the best way to handle it. Because you're saying you want 4, you're saying you want 1. And it's almost kind of a situation where first one to make a motion gets to vote on it. You understand what I'm saying? And there may not be any other way of doing it.
And I see what you're saying, but it's not what it's our opinion of what's best for the citizens. It's not what I want or Kevin or what Rand or anybody wants. It's what we feel is best for the citizens. But I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna get to a motion any way we went about this.
Uh-huh.
And I think everybody's getting an opportunity to say, so you can factor that and those
Yeah,
arguments
vote.
into how you vote on the motion on the table.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, my personal opinion is, I'm with you on kind of
Trying to simplify.
simplifying.
Yeah.
So 3 and 4, to me, both of those do that, so.
Right.
My thought on 3 was Harbor was a really good line to head west as opposed to where. And 4, that line's pretty jagged. There's not gonna be any perfect way.
No.
I just thought 3 was a little, other than the one little bump up there from the bottom, it's all pretty square. That's just my opinion.
All right. I'm gonna ask for the vote unless somebody has another comment. I'll give the room one more chance.
I'll make one last comment, Mayor.
Okay.
So I'll take this back to the conversation at committee. And I'll be vague about this. And it went back to my original comment of this vote being for the citizens of our city and not for personal favors or political favors. And I think I can just leave it at that.
All right. All right, the motion, to be clear, and second was for Plan 3. So we'll vote on that motion now, Denise.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
No, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fujirus,
Yes.
Powell.
No.
Carries 6-2.
6-2. All right. Thank you all. We have, and so those will go into effect in plenty of time for filing dates, and, or there will be a period to challenge.
The statute provides that 100 electors could petition to challenge it, and they have 90 days to do so. And like I said, I wanted to make sure that 90 days would passed before the filing period, which the filing period this year is August 3rd to August 10th.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and can you explain that part? Not that I have any intention on challenging this, but just what happens and once they do challenge it?
I've got the statute here.
And Ernest, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's
If we
fine.
don't know, then.
It just says within 90 days after with tonight's action, if 100 or more qualified electors in the city are dissatisfied with the redistricting, the electors may petition the circuit court. And then, obviously, with the filing period coming up, it would probably be expedited, probably be pushed to the front of the line for that very reason. But it does say that the court has the authority to redistrict as it, the word it says is shall deem best. So, but it's also done on an arbitrary and capricious standard, as most of our ordinances are evaluated under. Basically, if there's a rational basis for the decision, it'll be upheld. And it's only going to be altered or struck down if it was arbitrary and capricious, kind of like a zoning ordinance, for example. So that's a pretty high bar that someone would have to clear before they could successfully challenge. In my opinion, based on the discussion, both at committee and tonight, both, and also in the written materials that were in the packet, to me, clearly has a rational basis, clearly not arbitrary and capricious, in my opinion. But that's what it says.
Mayor, can you remind me of with this new, number 3 that we just voted for, how does that work with the present council? Does somebody have to swap with that one?
They will have to change, you'll
Is
have
it
the same
Amelia
people
has to?
running. Amelia will need to run for Ward 4. And I think Brian changes, doesn't he?
Because
Brian-
that 3
Brian-
to 4 will change. That's
Brian will
for
change
sure.
to 1. But yeah, we have 3 that will change. And who's up in the, Mike Lawson.
So Mike will run in
Mike-
one? Huh?
Mike will run in 1 of the incumbents. Mike, if he runs for re-election, will be in 1. Brian will also be in, Brian will be in 3.
Oh,
And Amelia.
welcome to the.
And Amelia will be in 4. So those are the 3 incumbents that would run, they're running anyway, but they would be running for different wards than they're currently in.
And not against each other.
And not, right.
Well, being citywide elections, there's not really a political
it's
game
not
or
as-
I mean, it's not.
It's not nearly as
you
much of
know.
a factor in Springdale because
Right.
we're elected citywide.
Right.
Which went back to the conversations that, this is whatever's best for
Right.
our citizens, and this is gonna work out just fine too, so.
Okay. Good deal. All right, we'll move on now. Well, Mike, you have this next one?
13 is a
No,
standalone.
That was the only one. 13's a standalone. Okay. I'm gonna turn this over to Ernest.
The next item, I'll just go ahead and read the title of the ordinance. It's an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of water and sewer revenue bonds to finance extensions, betterments, and improvements to the sewer facilities of the city's water and sewer system, providing for the payment of the principal of and interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters relating thereto, and declaring an emergency. And I believe Mr. Russell is here if you have any questions about that.
Mayor, members of the council, this ordinance, you've heard the title, it authorizes $43,080,000 of water and sewer revenue bonds. The bond proceeds will be spent for wastewater improvements. It's a 15-year bond issue. The ordinance approves the various documents that the city signs in connection with the issuance of the bonds, including a bond purchase agreement with Stevens and Cruz and Associates, continuing disclosure agreement with Bank of the Ozarks, and a preliminary official statement the investors saw, given the details of the bonds. Ordinance also provides the details of the bonds, sets up the various funds and accounts, has certain covenants having to do with the tax exempt status of interest on the bonds. And here tonight, should you have any questions regarding the projects, Heath Ward and Rick Pulverini from the Springdale Water Utilities are here to address, answer any questions you have. Kevin Falk from Stevens is here to answer any questions you might have regarding the sale of the bonds.
Shep, we've got hard copies here in front of us. It's the only difference that the amounts are plugged in, no other difference in the document.
Right, they reflect today's bond sale.
Okay.
This morning, and those are the final terms.
All right.
I'm going to make a motion that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions first for Heath.
Yes, sir.
Heath, could you remind us exactly what the projects are covered by this bond?
Okay, this specific bond issue is applicable to the wastewater facility improvements that we've been studying for the last 5 years. This is to improve the capacity and the flow through the wastewater plant, as well as to improve the water quality effluent and remove some bottlenecks from the process to make it more consistent. Also, to provide some more capacity for future growth past 2040, for example.
To the plant.
At the plant.
At the plant. And once we do that, and quite frankly, the reason we borrowing this money for the wastewater plant at this time is because, as the council knows and anyone in business knows, construction prices are through the roof, but yet we have an obligation to our city to continue to improve our infrastructure. We also don't know if we're going to get any ARP funding. So we need to pull the trigger on this project to get it going. In the meantime, the plan is to keep our cash that we have in reserve for smaller projects in our community, such as the southeast portion of the community, where we plan on doing, are already currently doing some lift station improvements, and we will be doing some force main improvements there. And we also have other projects in the future that we will have to finance, but that will be done through ANRC. And the reason we're not using the ANRC funding for this particular project, because it is a lower interest rate, is quite simply that it's a little more cumbersome and gives us less flexibility. So if our ship comes in on the ARPA money, we can then spend that money on this project, and then any remaining bond monies that we have, we can either pay back the principal, or we can spend those funds on other sewer-related projects in the community. So this is earmarked for the wastewater plant with the intent the remainder of the funds Springdale Water and Sewer Commission has will be spent on other projects in Springdale over a given period of time.
Exactly what are you going to do in the southeast quadrant?
Right now, the immediate thing we're doing is to increase capacity by improving 2 lift stations, specifically the Clear Creek lift station and the Butterfield Coach lift station. Those projects originally were estimated to be around $5 million. The bids come in at double that. We're still proceeding with that. A contract has been awarded to Crossland Heavy for both projects, which is a good deal for us because it's a lot less coordinating because we're working with one contractor. Simultaneously, we have negotiated a contract with Olson Engineering to do a study for the size of force main that we will need in that vicinity. Once those lift stations are completed, that force main will increase more capacity in that area, and then in turn we'll have to do other force main improvements from our lift station near Cambridge Road out to the plant. So that's a little more involved. That's going to take a little bit longer, but the immediate plans in the southeast are in motion right now.
Is there currently a moratorium on any new hookups on the southeast?
There is, and it is limited to the amount and capacity that we said we could handle. The amount of
of planned subdivisions, apartments, et cetera, that is going in there is almost 2 times the amount of people we are serving right now. What we have told some developers is, smaller developments, we can accept more commercial development. If somebody wants to, for example, build a auto parts store, they can do something like that. But what we can't handle right now until we get more capacity and until we can do some studies, especially this fall and spring with flow monitoring and gathering data, we think by December we will know if we do have more capacity there than what we've calculated on paper.
But right now, you're telling any new development to come in, they cannot have sewer hookup.
They cannot have sewer hookup or have a commitment from us that service will be available.
What would be wrong with planning right now, if you're going to do this bond issue, what would be wrong with planning for development over there? If you were going to develop the other portions of the city, why not develop the east side of the city?
Well, there are plans to do the east side of the city, just the funding source wouldn't be from the bonds, it would be from our cash reserves.
Why wouldn't you do it from the bond to get, if you're going to be working on the main facility to increase capacity there, why wouldn't you not be working on both the force main and the lift stations to increase capacity on the east side so it'd be compatible with what we have in other parts of the city?
We are. The funding source is just different.
So why, if the funding source is different, why cut them off? Why cut off development then for new people? Because what you're basically, how long are you talking about cutting off new sewer hookups on the east side?
We won't really know that answer until December, once we get the data and the studies done and we get the data collected. We will know more.
So you have no plans to, right now, to help the people on the east side that are already platted in subdivisions. If somebody has a plan, if somebody had a 20-acre tract to come in with 320 units, you'd tell them they could not hook it up, correct?
Right now, I could not, and nor would the health department even approve those plans. If I told them I thought they could, the health department probably would not approve those plans either.
So right now, we have no plans at hand to develop the east side.
That is
Other than where it
incorrect.
is.
We do, it's just not from the funding source of the bonds.
How many, Heath, based on your figures right now, I know you're gonna get an updated capacity in December, hopefully.
Hopefully by December, we'll have some hard data and
Yeah.
we can either tell people, some more people can go to town, or we're gonna have to wait for some other shoes to fall.
But based on what we're comfortable with now and what's already been platted, is everything that's been, at what stage is everything at? I know everything's not built that y'all can
Correct.
y'all can serve. So
And some dirt
how much
hasn't-
more do we have to serve? How much more that is yet to be built that we can serve?
Rick, roughly, what's that number? How many units roughly are not constructed yet? Is it around 2,000? About 1,800, close to 2,000.
Do we have other projects that are platted beyond those?
There may be, but there's not. I mean, we haven't made a commitment as far as giving them sewer, whether they've got a preliminary plat or not. That could be possible, but we definitely have not made any commitments to anybody other than those projects, those 1,800 units that we have made a commitment to, that have went through the planning process with the city of Springdale in our comments.
So building's not stopping out there.
No, sir.
It'll take time for that, and in the meantime, but to Mike's point, we don't know if someone has a new development, they want to start that process.
They can go ahead.
They can go through the process.
Right. They can go ahead and do
It may just be a
the,
while before we know they have capacity.
yes, they can do the engineering, they can do all the work, they can do everything up to that point, depending on what kind of risk they want to take.
But why wouldn't you be increasing your bond issue to have the funds available for the development over there?
Well, because the funds are available with our cash reserve. The bonds are for the wastewater plant. We
So
will
you're
use-
saying you have the cash money, but you won't spend it on the east side? Is that what you're saying?
That's incorrect.
What are you saying?
No, sir, that's not correct. What I'm saying is the funding source is not the bonds for those improvements. Those improvements will be made with cash on hand.
Okay, you're confusing me then. If you say it's going to be you don't have enough cash on hand to do the development there now, is that right?
I don't have enough cash on hand to do the wastewater plant at today's prices
Okay.
and do everything else I need to do in the immediate future for the growth of the city.
Ergo, back to my original point, why wouldn't you plan ahead and increase your bonding so that you had the funds to develop the east side as well as the main station?
With all due respect, I've never said I didn't have the funds to do the east side.
Okay.
I have the funding to do the east side. I don't have enough money to do what we need to do in the east side and other parts of this community and upgrade our wastewater plant for the future.
That gets back to my point, then why wouldn't you increase your bond so you'd have the funds to do it?
Because it's simply, I'm not gonna go into debt for the sake of going into debt without a purpose. I have money to do those projects. And with all due respect, it's just a difference of the funding source. That the planning is there, the work is being done, the contracts are out there. It's just coming out of our current cash reserves, whereas the improvements for the wastewater plant are coming out of this bond issue. And if we get some ARPA money, that funding source will change, and then we can use the water and sewer funds from the bond issue for other water and sewer projects in the community, no matter where they're at.
So you're moving forward as fast, what I'm hearing, I think I'm hearing, you correct me if I'm wrong, you're moving forward with these projects as fast as you can. Money is not the issue. You've got the cash in hand. But there is design and all those things. Now, one could argue maybe we didn't see this coming early enough, and those are fair arguments to have.
Those are fair questions.
Those are
They
fair
most certainly
questions to
are.
have, but as we sit here today, more money's not your issue. It's just a matter of the time it takes to get it done.
It's timing, and I'll give you an example. Even though we got this project off the ground in record time, it's going to be done in a year. And I'll give you an example. Switchgear was 9 to 10 months out just to get a switchgear. And so we pushed the envelope on procurement. I'm not saying we did anything illegal, but we pushed the envelope and consulted with Mr. Harwell on every procurement method we used to expedite getting these lift stations upgraded on the east side. So you are correct. Money is not the issue. It's timing and time and supply chain issues.
So, I'm just in full agreement with Mr. Overton saying over here. I never realized we're two peas in a pod, but, so if you had an extra, if you had an extra, I mean, that's just a hypothetical number, an extra $1 million right now, could you not do anything with it? And again, that's a hypothetical number.
Sure, there's more places to spend the money than there is money long-term. But short-term development happening, at least from an infrastructure standpoint, there's nothing really holding us back from doing what we need to do in the southeast quadrant of the city.
Oh, aside from the home completions, right? Or?
Well, somebody's got to turn dirt, and that's not our job. Somebody's got to.
Yeah, but so going back to it, we can begin the construction, but we can't end the construction. Is what it is.
No, for about 1,800 homes, you can end the construction.
Yeah.
But that's not, but they're working on it now, and you're saying within a year to 2 years, we're gonna have
more capacity out there. We are staying just ahead of the approved construction that's out there now.
So that was my next question. So we're not keeping pace. We're ahead of the current pace of the demand.
For the 1,800, there's more demand out there, and there's more demand every day. Yeah. There's somebody calling us every day. We've had calls today of people wanting to get on a list.
Right, and granted, I mean,
yeah.
we can't move as fast as this market is demanding, and I understand that. So thanks
right.
for clarifying that part of it.
Yeah, and so therein lies the issue. There is more demand than we can put out there right now, but at least for the 1,800 units that aren't built yet, we can cover those. And those are apartments and single-family homes, including some affordable housing that's being done over there.
So if we didn't have the bond, okay, and which I hope we do, but if we didn't, you still have your cash on hand that you are planning to use for the east quadrant.
Right.
Correct?
That would happen. Yes, ma'am. That would happen. And if we didn't have the bond money, I guess the hard choice would be to put the plan on hold and hope for the best, but we got to take care of the southeast quadrant. We got to take care of issues on the west side. We got to take care of our third line from downtown all the way to the wastewater plant. Those big overhead pipes by the plant, that's our next big project. And we'll probably do a combination of cash and partial financing with ANRC, and that'll be at hopefully the 1 to 1.5% rate, since we're in the Illinois River watershed. So those projects are going to happen. Unfortunately, if I did not have the bond money to do the wastewater improvements, we just have to cross our fingers, and I guess that's be something I'd pass on to my predecessor, or my antecessor, I should say.
This might be a question for Kevin, I'm not sure, but let's say we get into this 2 or 3 years down the road and prices have escalated or something unforeseen,
Happens.
I mean, what's the process to go back? I know you've got a lot of borrowing capacity.
Yes.
This 43 doesn't even touch it.
And we're doing this once again without raising rates.
Right.
Yes.
So Kevin, is the process to raise this amount, is it basically the same process over again?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
And I might add, you mentioned the capacity. We're at over almost 3.5 times coverage, meaning we have almost 3.5 times revenues versus debt service today. So, obviously the utility's done a nice job with managing their debt in the past, and so there's plenty of room to do more, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But not at this rate, most likely.
Interest rate.
That interest rate?
Yeah.
Well, I've got a pretty good rate, and I will tell you that I feel fortunate, because anybody who's going to wait another 6 months is going to have a rude awakening, in my opinion. Cash is a commodity.
I think what you're hearing tonight is that the same people that are calling you, asking you questions, are calling us, asking us questions.
Oh,
about the
absolutely.
east side, and so that's why I think a lot of this is coming up tonight.
Absolutely, and I understand that. I hope the council feels like we've been communicative with y'all over the last few months and explaining the situation out there. And we did come to the council several months ago to explain it's pretty complicated, but the bottom line is the 1,800 units that are approved can be built.
I think that's what some people may be missing, that we may be hearing from, is that it's going to take a while to build 1,800 units out there.
Yes.
And people who are planning, they are taking some risk with spending on engineering and things.
Sure, on buying land.
On the expectation that sewer will have capacity when they're ready to build. And they may very well have, but we can't tell them that.
I can't tell them that, to be honest with them. And even if Rick and I come up with a scheme where we thought we could squeeze a little more blood out of the turnip, that's probably not going to fly with the health department. And to be quite frank, we and our consulting engineers went down personally to Little Rock to explain this situation to them, because if you looked at the plans and you looked at the sequencing of events, it would look as if you didn't have enough downstream capacity. So we had to explain to them in detail how we were going to more or less domino or tie these projects together and make them happen in a certain sequence, so we could go ahead and have that development start. But the unfortunate thing is, and the bottom line is beyond those 1,800 units, we're not going to know if we can add any more until probably December.
With your existing infrastructure.
With the improvements we got underway right now.
With the improvements you got underway.
Yeah, we will, because the first phase of those improvements will actually be done probably around August.
Okay.
And that's the expansion of the Clear Creek. And then what we'll do is we'll put, and you think measuring sewer wouldn't be complex, but it is. We got equipment we put in the ground. And through that equipment, we'll look at the flows, and we may have a situation where we're in much better shape than we thought we were from a mathematical calculation. We may have a situation that's worse. We're hoping it's better, but at least we will know where we stand with the capacity there.
Heath, with the improvements you're planning with the lift stations on the east side, how much additional capacity, once you develop the the Clear Creek and the Butterfield Coach lift stations, how much more capacity will that add?
That will take care of the 1,800. There may be more capacity.
So that's
that-
just for the ones that are already committed to?
That's the ones that are committed, but then we're gonna come in behind that and put a dual force main in that will take care of the entire basin.
How long would it be to put the force main in?
We're looking at probably 2 years.
So it wouldn't benefit us to plan on putting in the force main now?
Well, actually, we're doing that right now. We're doing the planning for that, the study for that, but once again, the engineering takes time. We're in that process.
But there's nothing that says you have to do the work with the lift station, the improvements to the lift stations before you can start the work on the force main once the plans are ready.
Those things can
They
be
can run.
overlap potentially.
Okay. And you have the funding to do all that.
We have the funds to do that. We have the funding. What's gonna take time is the planning and the engineering.
So really, we're talking about 2 years minimum before anybody.
For ultimate build out, but once we get that construction started and we have a timeline and let that contract, a developer would know a finite time at which we would be finished, and then we could coordinate with them for their projects to be wrapped up or finished with that timeline. So I could say with a straight face to a developer, once this force main is completed on this day, there will be plenty of capacity. And then we would approve those plans and through the normal planning process and letting them know officially that capacity will be there by X date.
So what you're anticipating now, within 2 years, to be able to.
That'd be for anybody who wanted to do anything out there.
So
That would take care of the basin.
So Heath,
Oh, yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about.
I don't know if this is Shep or Kevin or Ernest, but there was, at the committee meeting, there was a discussion about how these revenue bonds would not be the obligation of the city of Springdale, that it's clearly tied to the water and sewer department, correct? So
That
if
is
I could
correct. I'll let Mr. Russell
Okay, thank you.
address that.
And another reason I'm asking that is that everywhere in the ordinance talks about the city. It doesn't say anything about hardly, maybe it does, but the Water and Sewer Commission. And it doesn't talk about how the debt service is tied to the water and sewers, not to the city of Springdale, the debt service.
Well, I can, after we discuss this, I can get the ordinance out and go over it with you. But two things, the water and
I
sewer.
just want some assurance on the record that you don't have to get the ordinance out. Just
Okay.
tell me we're
Well,
not
there
going to be
are two
responsible.
things the Water and Sewer Commission doesn't have any authority to do. They can't raise rates, council raises rates. They can't issue debt, they can't incur debt. Council's got to do that. So this is a city debt, and in the bond, it says it's not a general obligation of the city, but it is a obligation paid solely from the revenues of the water and sewer system, which, although operated by the commission for the city, it's a city entity. These are city funds that are being committed.
But it clearly talks about how that's paid out of revenues to the Water and Sewer Commission, correct?
Yes, the commission collects the money from the ratepayers, goes in an account that the city is setting up called a revenue account. And in the revenue account, first is used to pay operation and maintenance expenses. Second, it pays debt. Third, it provides for a depreciation fund. And fourth, it can be used for any other water and sewer purpose, like building new things, what have you. So it's strictly an obligation of those revenues.
Okay, so my second question may be more for Kevin, and that is, I understand that you're saying it's strictly for revenues raised by the Water and Sewer Commission, but it's City of Springdale bonds, correct? Okay, and we have to issue them, like you said. How does that affect our ability to issue bonds later down the road?
Good question. Different revenue sources.
Not going to impact the city of Springdale's ability to issue debt, and I assume you're talking about sales tax bonds. Just as Mr. Russell mentioned, water and sewer revenues are the security, so that's completely separate and apart from what anything.
But don't you
would
get
do.
like some sort of rating or something?
Not, they wouldn't be connected. I mean, these bonds have a rating just like your sales and use tax.
But then the
bonds have a-
city gets some sort of rating, and, you know, that makes the bonds
Well,
more attractive or not as attractive.
The rating agency, I believe, takes a holistic view of the city, yes, so that, it's a good point. But really what they're focusing on is your revenue stream. And again, you're talking about water and sewer versus sales and use tax bonds. So, I mean, you're both of those, I think these were AA minus. I think your sales tax bonds were AA minus or A plus as well. So, so yes, I think it's a factor, but generally speaking, the rating agency is going to look solely at your, not solely, but mainly at your revenue stream. And what, again, I mentioned coverage a while ago. That's a big factor, particularly on your sales tax bonds. They're going to look at things like the diversity of your economic base and those sort of things in the city. So, yes, I guess it does have a minute impact, but overall, they're not really focusing on that. So,
Because they've got different revenue streams.
correct.
Basically.
Does that help?
Got it.
Heath, as the Sewer and Water Commission reviewed all these numbers and everything, and the Sewer and Water Commission, have they reviewed all this? And
Yes, and they are satisfied, and they have been briefed up by Stevens and Cruz and Associates throughout this process. They've been given an update along the way and communicated with, and they will receive another one at the next Water and Sewer Commission on Wednesday.
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the room? Okay, Denise?
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
No.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores. Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Ordinance carries 7-1. It does have an emergency clause.
I move the emergency clause be adopted.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Emergency clause carries 8-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Item 14, we'll give to the city attorney.
Thank you. This is an ordinance authorizing the city clerk to file a cleanup lien for the removal of overgrown brush and debris on property located within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency. Property located at 2608 Powell, and there is a typo on page 2 that I'll correct on the address, but it's 2608 Powell.
Do we have anybody here to speak on that?
I'll always ask, but I usually wait till we get a motion, but I
I
don't,
apologize. I saw somebody stand up a second ago. I thought they were wanting to speak on it.
okay. I don't see anybody.
Well, then I'll make a motion, that the ordinance pass.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions? And nobody in the room? Okay, Denise?
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman, Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 15, I'm gonna turn over to Colby.
Evening, council. We have a resolution that reads a resolution amending the 2022 budget of the city of Springdale, Arkansas to fund a temporary impact route for the Ozark Regional Transit and authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding. As everyone is aware, we had a tornado that came through previously, and it did substantial amount of damage. As a city, we've tried to find different ways to assist our residents, but as you know, one of the things we're not allowed to do is just to give out funding, but what we can do is find creative ways such as this to assist those residents and ease a little bit of their burden. One of the things that we noticed as we traveled through some of the impact zones was a lot of the vehicles were damaged to these residents that were in the path of the tornado, which impacts their ability to get to work and even to some extent to the school and recreation and getting back to normal for some of these families. So we came up with the idea to create an impact route, which would partner with Ozark Regional Transit to create a new route in addition to the ones we already have allocated in our budget that would take the residents from Powell over to the Walmart Supercenter as a drop-off location and also to Lowe's. And from there, they would be able to access other routes with ORT. So the cost of this would be $4,000 per week. We are looking at federal funding through emergency resources. We don't know if that's going to happen. If it does, we're going to suggest that we tack that on to the end of this first month. But it would be no more than $4,000 a week for the next 4 weeks.
We would reevaluate, Joel, if we try this for a week or two and nobody's using it, then we could cut
This
it
is at
off.
your discretion, sir.
Yeah.
I will follow your lead on what you want me to do with this.
Okay.
But we'll go ahead and get it implemented, get it rolling. And like Mr. Fulfer said, we're already reaching out to the FDA to find out if there are any emergency funds available. They've already started asking questions about it to hopefully put some money in the pipeline.
Move the resolution pass.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Joel. All right, seeing none. Denise?
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams. Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
Great, thank you. We're at item 16. Oh, Wyman's not here to do this. He always did this.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
I'll read it. A resolution authorizing the temporary operation of a carnival.
Appears to be what we do every year, this location.
Is this the one with rodeo grounds like always?
Yes, yes, it is, Mike.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Roll call, please.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams. Watson.
Yes.
Overton. Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
All right, Colby, we need to put that back in your job description. Yeah, item 17, I'll turn over to the city attorney, Ernest.
This is a resolution setting a hearing date on a petition to abandon a portion of utility easement in the city of Springdale, Washington County, Arkansas. As you know, on these petitions, it requires, before you can take action, requires that a public hearing be set, and this was set the public hearing for May the 10th. This is another one of those lucky property owners that wishes to have a pool installed in their yard, and they're wishing to vacate a portion of their utility easement, and all the utilities obviously will have to give their written consent before this can happen as well. So this would just set the public hearing on the petition. And I read the title of the
Is it already
resolution.
built?
No. I've read the title of the resolution.
Move this resolution pass.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Powell.
Yes.
Williams. Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, item 18, I'll go ahead and read. A resolution authorizing the formation of an active transportation committee. I know we talked about this at committee. It was forwarded from committee with recommendation for approval. Patsy couldn't be here tonight. Of course, Rick's here, and we can welcome back Mike Peters. Mike, good to see you again. Glad to have you on board. Mike will be working in the planning department and will chair this committee, sir. So with that, I'd entertain a motion, or
I
any questions?
I move the resolution
Mayor,
pass.
I have a question.
Okay.
On all of our other commissions, there's only one that has any city council members on that. And I know that a lot of us get calls about sidewalk, streets, bus stops, everything else. Could we add somebody being on this?
I'm open to that. We don't have them on all committees.
Right, just
but-
one.
But I think this committee needs to put together their bylaws. We're gonna be a little more formal than we were with the old Trails Committee. And we did actually have Kathy on there as a council member for a long time, but she was a voting member. I think if we do add a council member, it would be as an ex officio, just like the mayor and just like engineers and just like, and then, but a council member could lend advice and also, and that would be an advocate for the council to know that that council member had been part of those discussions. So, Mike, I don't have any opposition as we're putting those bylaws together to have a council member as an ex officio member, just like I am.
I agree. I don't think it's a bad idea.
Okay. Would that be, are you volunteering or do you want to?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I'll remember that. Okay.
I might have to skip a Kiwanis every now and then.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? I think somebody was about to make a motion.
I think we did.
Motion and have a second.
Did we get it done? We don't have a second.
I seconded it.
Did you?
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't get you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Roll call, please.
Williams?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Flores?
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman?
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right. Thank you. And welcome back, Mike. Good to see you. Any comments from council members?
I got a comment or more of a question, Mayor. And forgive me for keeping us here longer, but can we get a quick update on the tornado relief, please? If you have anything.
Well, as I can give you an update what happened today, but we don't have a lot more information. We did our drive around and assessment with Arkansas Division of Emergency Management. I keep calling them Arkansas Department of Emergency Management. That's what they used to be, but now they're Arkansas Division, so they're still at them. But did our drive around with them. Also, SBA was on the tour. They did their evaluation. We came back and met afterward. They will submit their all their data. It'll take them a few more days, then they'll submit it to the state, and we'll see. We'll see what qualifies. We don't know yet. We know FEMA is not going to be in the picture, so it will be either if it meets an SBA disaster, then there will be some help for property owners and businesses. And I'm not going to get into the details, but there will be some help available. Also, that if that happens, most likely there will be some state individual assistance available as well. So we're just going to have to wait. We hope to have an answer by sometime next week, and then we'll go from there. But that's kind of where we're at. As we drove around, we saw a lot of, there's been a lot of cleanup going on, a lot of building even. As we drove through the mobile home park and through some other areas, there are already contractors working and volunteers still working. And is Tom still here? Tom was on that tour. But we're just encouraging everyone, if y'all talk to anybody, if people don't have to wait on anything. If they're wanting to get to work, they just need to save any receipts. Of course, volunteers can do work as well, as long as it's permitted, if it requires a permit. And so just have everybody keep their documentation, keep their receipts, because if there is funding available, many times those receipts can get them reimbursed. So, okay? Good deal. Good question. City Attorney?
No, sir.
Nothing from me. We have a motion to adjourn? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.